go around first or initially and just everyone introduce themselves and then start?
I'm Allison Gant, and I'm with the Department of Social Services, Aging and Adult Services, and I'm also the co-chair of this home collaborative. Yeah.
I'm Sandra Silva, Senior Secretary for Aging and Adult Services.
I'm Jasmine Williams. I'm the Family Self-Sufficiency Specialist for the Housing Authority here in Monterey County.
Erica Parker with the Office of Assembly Members.
I'm Tracy Fallon with Covia, which has Canterbury Woods and Pacific Grove and community programs, and we have a few shared housing programs in the Bay Area.
I'm Karen Gardner, Case Management Supervisor at Central California.
So before you start building, I'm going to ask if it's okay with everybody, because we don't have any disclaimers or anything for people to sign to be on.
Hi, I'm Ron Leland, also with Aging and Adult Services.
But I'll just see if everybody's comfortable.
I'm Meg. I'm litigation.
I'm Lyle Conley, former resident Maria. I'm with Friends of River River. It's in Carmel Valley. It's a housing facility for senior disabled. We're a community advocacy group. And I'm also an ombudsman with the Atlanta on Aging.
My name is Artie Wilner. I am a senior, but I'm just interested in this group and here with Amy to see what I can learn.
Margaret Huffman, I'm with Department of Social Services, Aging and Adult Services, and Area Agency on Aging. And I first heard Amy at our California Welfare Directors Association conference back in October, and I said, we've got to get her to present down here. So happy that you made it down here today.
Maggie Pena. I'm with the Alliance on Aging. I'm the Ombudsman Program Manager.
So before you go, yeah, Wes.
Yeah, my name is Wes White. I'm a community enthusiast. I go all throughout the Tri-County area videoing civic, social, environmental justice-oriented issues. I'm a homeless advocate with the President's Leaders Homeless Union. This is a great group to follow and hopefully get more community engagement. So I'd like to be able to video the meeting if it's okay with everybody. If anybody says no, please, I'll turn it off.
Looks like we're good to go.
Yeah. Thanks. Great. Yeah, that's my friend Dred. He takes pictures.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
Dred.
Dred. Okay. Well, thank you guys. I'm happy to hear that you do have an interest in home sharing. I started this particular program in August of 2014, and basically SHARE is an acronym which is Shared Housing and Resource Exchange. So in addition to creating housing through home sharing or matching, we provide services. We get people jobs, if they need a car, whatever that exchange of resources that we can provide for the person. Surprisingly, some of our older population isn't even aware of what the services are that are available for them in Sonoma County, where I have my home share program. Sonoma County is a wealth of senior services, so I'm proud to be associated with the county, with the Human Services Group, the multiple senior centers, and the aging community. So I just want to start out by, this is all about stories. If you look at this particular slide, down to the far lower right, we have Albert. Albert is 98 years old. He's a World War II veteran. He has 2 women living with him. He has Alzheimer's. He goes to the Catholic Charities Day Center Monday, Wednesday, Friday. His health has improved significantly because he's home sharing. He's getting good food. His family who lives outside of California do not have to be worried about him. And the other ones we'll actually talk about throughout the presentation. Basically, our mission is to create affordable housing. Anywhere there is an empty bedroom, I'm interested in it, frankly. And the providers would typically be 60 years or older. And so if you have someone who does have an empty bedroom, it could be in a household configuration of maybe an accessory dwelling unit, a converted garage or an empty bedroom within the home. and maybe it was a shared bath or a private bath. But basically, we are creating affordable housing. And in fact, I don't even like to call it affordable housing anymore because we can't even define affordable in Sonoma County. You know, our housing stock is lost because of the wildfires. So basically, what I try to do is what is attainable. So if you have a home seeker who's extremely low income, which is predominantly the population that we have for seekers is extremely low or low income, which means that maybe they have $900 a month. Some folks that we work with only have $600 a month. So we have created a home share program that does structure housing for someone who is extremely low income. But we are creating affordable, attainable housing throughout Sonoma County. And basically, I've targeted approximately 60,000 empty bedrooms. That's for 60 and older households, someone who is 60 or older. And basically, that's through looking at the data that's available through the U.S. Bureau Census. Programs for Share California is our nonprofit. This was started, our nonprofit was organized in 2017. Prior to that, I started the Share Sonoma County program. I'd been approached by the Area Agency on Aging early in 2014. They were informally, the advisory council was informally meeting to try to create, just come up with creative ideas for housing. One of the folks on this team, she started calling me and kind of picking my brain. And at some point, I actually wasn't working. My husband had died the year before, so I was taking time off to figure out what would be my next career. And so she knew that I had started a home share program in 2011 when I was hired by a local homeless shelter in Petaluma, which is called Committee on the Shelterless, COTS, the Mary Isaac Center. And in 2011 to 12, I had that program. That was how long the grant was. But basically, the home share program was designed to help homeowners. The economy was upside down, flip-flopped upside down. People were, they were foreclosing and bankruptcy. So the executive director for COTS at that time was trying to generate revenue for a homeowner who had an extra bedroom. And so I started the home share program then, utilizing the fantastic assistance of HEAP Housing or Commuity, who is still with them. Their program has been in place since the late 1970s. She was very gracious and generous with her information, time, and support. And I would not have this program if it had not been for her experience and expertise. So SHARE has been around since August 2014. We have completed 372 home shares. I'll show the different types of the structures of home shares that we do. But basically 60% of those home shares are now service exchange, where you're providing services, and mostly in lieu of paying rent. 40% are pure rent exchange, and when I first started the program, it was really 50-50, but now because of more and more people entering 60 or older with very low income, that the service exchanges are becoming more popular. And frankly, more and more people are becoming older and older and needing assistance. So ShareFire was created October 9, right after the fires. The then mayor of Sebastopol, Uniglass, called me and said, well, what do I do with all these people wanting to open up their home to temporarily house a victim, a fire victim? So I started ShareFire, and it went viral to the point that we had up to 60 volunteers any given day. This was 12 to 14 hours a day from that point all the way through past the holidays. And the phases became, first initially, a person wasn't sure their home was still intact. Finding it's intact, they could go back to their house. Then went on to where people who lost their housing, they could get some insurance monies that could help them with housing to people who had lost everything, couldn't return because of smoke infestation or whatever, and they became more permanent housed home shares. And so we have still 7 or 8 that are from those days, but we continue to match share fire folks who've been impacted by the fires. I just literally placed a gentleman, his name is Art. He's 80 years old. He had been living in his truck since the fires, has bone cancer, amazing story. And some of his doctors, his medical support started calling me saying, what can you do for this guy? So on paper it would be like, oh my gosh, he's 80 and he has bone cancer. How do I place him with someone? Well, I met him and realized he's 80, he looks 70, and he acts 60. And it just coincidentally that a matriarch in Healdsburg who lives in a beautiful, beautiful home, her son lives in Petaluma, so the drive back and forth is quite tedious. She needs someone to be there, to stay there at nighttime. She does have dementia, but she doesn't wander. So she's got this protected little life in this beautiful home, and Art fit in, and they're doing amazingly. He is a chef, so her diet's improved, it's just quite delightful, but he's got solid housing. The son is beyond measure, and I had to convince the son. This was her second home share, because the first person that we had in there, he actually was able to rebuild his life. He had a catastrophic event, so he rebuilt his life, was able to go on and move into his own place. So the second home share number 2 was Art moving in, and it's going very, very well. So I also have a program, grants funding through Sebastopol and now Healdsburg. So we will continue to grow our staff, specifically in Sonoma Valley is also another area where we've got this beautiful, beautiful collaboration with a supervisor, the mayor, the senior center, the support overnight services shelter. So we're doing a lot of collaboration and further developing our home share program. So our staffing is myself. Indigo came from COTS. She wears many hats. She understands the homeless population. She understands working with people on the phone, so she's superior. We have Lynn Leah Chantal actually is a home share participant. She's living actually, so on the front screen there was Katie, who is living with someone who came from the COTS program. Her son lives on the other side of Petaluma, and Chantal's living in his back unit providing services, which is meal preparation, household duties, and Fawn and Julie. So we've got a really strong team, and everyone has, we're so focused on growing the business that everyone is wearing many hats and lots of experience on the table. So home sharing, it's very inexpensive to run a home share program. You have an empty bedroom, you match someone to live in there, that we estimate that the cost of that with the amount of hours that are involved, that's a very, very simple matching process with not too much complication. We're looking at around $1,500 per match. It's benefits from the program. We're tracking this now through our Salesforce database, which is to show how a person's health improves simply by having someone in the home, someone who can provide XYZ. Each share is different and unique. But we are able to track that now. We are saving Medi-Cal dollars, and certainly family and friends are less burdened. The impact in that person, that provider's community is significant. So talking about homeless in Sonoma County, we're mostly focused on anyone who's homeless, who is couch surfing, who is at risk of homelessness, who has just now entered the homeless population, at a shelter. Obviously, they're limited in their income levels, might not have much support, and because it's so expensive now to live in Sonoma County, that now, for the first time, it's been going on, I guess, probably towards a year now, but we are seeing more and more 60-year and older in homeless shelters. And that's a new statistic. A lot of folks are waiting for their name to come up on a Section 8 voucher, and even when it does, it's hard to find housing through a voucher simply because with the lack of housing in Sonoma County, why get $1,200 through a voucher when you can ask for $1,800, for a one-bedroom unit? But I've got right now 3 Section 8 vouchers pending. We're able to convince home providers, homeowners, and they do have to be the homeowner typically, because the owner is the one that gives approval to use the voucher within that residence or that address. But we are actively trying to encourage someone to accept a voucher. And I have a story that I'll show you in a minute, but in Sonoma County, for the county voucher, it's different than the City of Santa Rosa voucher. The county voucher for a bedroom is $1,000 a month now. And that's pretty good income for someone who, is just barely making ends meet. And we don't really, from my perspective, I don't really see too much competition from the Airbnb. Because I am dealing with an older population, typically the providers, that I don't really see that I'm competing. I really haven't felt that there's any competition with someone saying, well, I'd rather do an Airbnb than rent out a room for you. That really doesn't happen for me. So again, attainable housing, 5% of the housing stock throughout Sonoma County was lost. Before the fires, typically my home shares, mobile home parks, different 55 and over subdivisions, those are where my bread and butter are, if you will. A room used to go for $450 to $600, and now it's getting towards $800. And someone will say, well, my neighbor is getting $1,000 for her room. Why should I? It's like, well, look, you're more than welcome to go try to get $1,000 for your room if you don't want to do a voucher, yada yada. But I can't find somebody to rent this room, which really does have a value of $700, frankly. You know when you're looking at a room, if it's a shared bathroom, it's kind of in a 1970s mobile home park. It's really hard to say that you could get $1,000 for that room. So, but some people do have kind of unrealistic expectations because of post-fires. So SHARE is all about creating stepping stones. So this is Annie. She came to me, she'd never been homeless before. She's from South Korea. And she was living in bushes near the public library downtown Santa Rosa. She and a friend, she had someone that they protected each other. She started going to what we call a women's day center called the Living Room in Santa Rosa. It's a beautiful center where mothers and children and women, individuals, that they can come and have a good meal, take a shower, but it closes at 2 o'clock, so you have to have where do you go after that? But I met her there. I matched her to provide services above Timber Cove, which is along the coast between Jenner, about 20 minutes north of Jenner. And I did that. It just came by pure coincidence. It came to be because her son works at the Timber Cove Lodge and lives in Jenner, but he didn't have room for her to stay. He had a girlfriend, and that was not working out for her to stay on the couch. So So anyway, so she moved into this particular home share, this gorgeous home share, providing services. While she was there, her Section 8 voucher came up, so we converted that home share from service exchange into a rent exchange. And so she was there for well over a year. And then her name came up on subsidized housing through Bethlehem Towers in Santa Rosa. So she truly stepped through the share program from homelessness through these 2 different housing solutions. And then she ended up, and I meet her maybe once every 3 months because she's, just to check in with her. But she's now grandma. The son also moved down to Santa Rosa. And so she's quite happy and not homeless. So basically the home share, just basically, the home share program is a living arrangement. You know, we have, typically it's between 2 people. It's very rare that I can match someone with a child, though I've done 14 so far. But it's typically between someone who, a single person who has the housing with a single person who is in need of housing. And one of the parties needs to be, or should be, 60 years or older. I have intergenerational home shares. I have 2 where the ladies are in their 30s. One is fun because it's like a grandmother that she never had. So it sounds corny, but they bake cookies and they have a very lovely relationship. And then I have a couple of folks who are in their 40s and 50s, but for the most part, it is 60 years or older is the folks that my population that I concentrate on. So provider, 90% are women and 10% are men. And oddly enough, we've been having more male providers calling, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, but we have had an increase of male inquiry. And for the provider, the person, the 102, she passed away. Our oldest now is 98, and most of them are in their 80s and their 90s. And so some of them do need income, but a lot of them need services. A lot of them need help in order for them to stay home and to be safe and to age in place. Oftentimes they don't have much support. Family lives elsewhere. And they can be house rich and they can be cash poor. Oftentimes, pretty much everyone right across the board is lonely. You know, I had a lady in a subdivision where I've got quite a few home shares, and every time I would visit her before I matched her, she's a Jewish woman, and I matched her with a gentleman who converted to Judaism like 5 years before. So he takes her to temple every Friday night, and she wasn't able to do that. And but every time I go over there, I realize that the TV's on and kind of wondering what that's all about. And then one day she calls me and she goes, "Guess what? I turned the TV off." Because that was just her sense of, the white noise was too, no noise was just too much for her. So she had to have something in the background, so she probably to keep her from going insane. And a seeker is basically, it is also mostly individuals. I do have 14 who have a little child, and one that comes to mind is a woman who on paper you actually would say, well, she's too many issues, too much history, she's challenging the place. She has a child who then was about 18 months old. She was at a homeless shelter in Santa Rosa. And the woman who runs the shelter knows who I can and cannot work with. She is very clear. I'm not going to work with somebody who has a strong history of addiction. If they, I just won't do it. But she did on paper not look so good. But Kathy said, "Look, you've got to trust me on this one." I met with her and she was delightful. And she's now been in a home share for over 3 years for a woman in Sebastopol. And this particular home share, you'll see the levels of home sharing that we create. Share has an assessment tool, which basically levels 1 through 5. So this particular home share is level 5. This woman needs 24/7 care. She is quadriplegic, very lightweight, but she has 3 share participants in different housing configurations living with her. And Rebecca is one of them with her child. So they actually built her a little 2-bedroom unit so that she and her child could have a sort of a little area of privacy for themselves. But she's going to school. She's basically the case manager for the household. It's great. So she's grown, and it's nice to see that. And I'm glad I trusted her. She came through more than I even would have hoped for. The seekers, it's basically 80-20, male versus female, female versus male. A lot of folks I work with are on disability, and this population, which represents for a third of this population, is homeless. So those folks are coming out of 3 different shelters that I'll work with throughout Sonoma County, or they have fallen through the cracks. It's not documented they're living in their car. It's not documented that they're couch surfing. And we're still determining quite a few fire survivors are also within this population. It's hard to tell how many there are, but we still get at least 5 calls a week from fire survivors from the October fires in 2017. So there are 4 types of home sharing: the rent exchange, service exchange, the combination of the 2 where it's a partial rent, partial service, and I also have community houses. So the rent exchange is basically there are no service obligations other than your responsibilities as a renter. Again, we're in quite a few mobile home parks at 55 and older, a lot of private homes or second dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units. We do all the paperwork. I'll tell you more about as far as how we screen and all that in a minute. But fair housing, it's purely renting a room. And for this type of exchange, we have a match fee, which is 50% of the first month's rent. And that may or may not be done all of that time. I might have to stretch it over 6 months, depending on just how much the provider needs that income. So this is Sue. Sue is in black shirt with Rita. And Sue has been, and this is her 4th home share. Her first one, she called me, it was New Year's Eve, I picked her up 3 years ago. She was at Sam Jones, which is a shelter in Santa Rosa. It's the Catholic Charities run shelter. She'd never been in a shelter before, and that's a hardcore shelter. That's a pretty, and now I guess you guys understand that a shelter is, now shelters are wet, which means that because of Housing First, they don't check for drugs. You can come in and, completely high, bring alcohol in your backpack, that they don't check anymore. And so the shelters are becoming more and more dangerous. So COTS, which I love, they have 100 beds, and a supervisor told me last week that now more than 90% of those individuals are using. So case managers are not sure how to deal with that. It's very problematic, but it's the Housing First model, which is get them housed and then deal with it. But it's hard. It's becoming a real problem. But anyway, Sue was traumatized. She ended up in emergency, almost passed away. Somehow she heard about me in emergency, called me. I picked her up, put her into a service exchange with a woman I've been working with for quite some time, trying to figure out the right match for her. And Sue fit the bill completely. She was there for 8 months. Unfortunately, the person passed away. Her second home share, unfortunately, the person passed away from older people. And then her third share, The person was put into an assisted living place, so she lost her housing again. I was determined to help her, but she was also falling apart. You know, she's in her 70s, and she had so much shoulder pain and issues from being a cosmetologist. She could barely even do vacuuming because she couldn't even provide services anymore. And so I put her in Sloan House. I have a connection there that I need a bed. So Sue was there for 6 months. Couldn't find anything for her. I just couldn't find it for her. 2 days before she was supposed to leave Sloan House, the 6-month program, I got a call from Rita here in white, a white shirt. And I've been talking with her off and on a little bit, but she had, a neighbor had moved in and that didn't work out. And she kept trying to do things because she really needed the income. And so she finally had called me and said, I'm at the end of my rope. I think I'm going to kill myself. And I was like, oh my God, you know. So I talked her down from that, got some support for her that helped her through that moment. And then 2 days later, Sue calls me and says she had her Section 8 voucher. County. And she's in the county. So we're able, within 5 days, HUD did the inspection. She was paying a full $1,000 within 30 days. And so they're doing very well. And she's not yet had her shoulder surgery, but it's in the process where she'll be having her surgery and actually get to take care of herself. This is a home share. This home represents a service exchange that I had. And this is between a woman from France, her name is Madi. Beautiful, elegant. They don't make women like that anymore. I mean, the woman was incredible. She actually passed away while Marie was with her. Marie Antoinette was her name. And she was with her for well over a year. So in this particular instance, that Marie provides services, and it basically comes out to 15 hours a week. How I average that is that if I take a room, say the value of that room is $700, IHSS pays, do they pay $13 here? Or
$12.50.
do we know? Oh man. So, well, in Sonoma County, it's $13. So if you put that into the 700, that comes out basically to 15 hours a week. And then with 2 days with a sense of less responsibility other than to make sure that the provider is safe and secure. So anyway, so it comes out to basically 3 hours a day. Possibility to earn income, which might be if the person has IHSS hours, or they're willing to pay under the table. Or not under the table, but, sorry. Did I say that? That's never happened before. But if they are able to pay some, additional monies for it because they need additional help. So yes, 15 hours a week. We started off on a 30-day trial with the understanding that the seeker who's moved in, that person, if it doesn't work out, it's a two-way street. That person might not like the share or whatever, but if within that 30 days they decide that it's not working out, the person that was moved in has an exit strategy. Doesn't become my problem. So they sign up for that, and I know what their housing is if in fact they need to exit out of the home share. We provide an intense amount of support around that, and I think that's probably why our attrition rate is 5.5%, is that we are very careful with the folks that we're working with. Someone's assigned to that new home share, and on a weekly basis, each participant is contacted separately. What's working, what's not working, what do you need, how can I help, is everything great, wonderful, go, continue. But we don't go away. We're always providing support. It's not just during the 30 days, it's the entire life of the home share. And our attrition rate is proof that that really is the best policy, because things can come up. It's hilarious what, the things that can come up. I had a lady with a dog, I don't think she knew that she didn't like it, but she didn't like, the dog was fine in the home, but she didn't like the way it went through the house to go to the restroom. And it became a huge problem. So it's just simple things like that, when we figured out, oh, okay, so you just go go through the front door, around, and then, So, but things do happen. We try very, very hard that when we're creating a new home share, that we've defined as clearly as possible what this person's needs are. And they're documented in the agreement. And the agreement will shift and change sometimes because they become more, more of a community together. They're more comfortable, so then the person might do more different things, or so the agreement potentially can shift and change and just evolve as the relationship evolves. Yeah. The other thing too, I was just talking to you about this, as far as our collaboration with other agencies. So with Human Services in Sonoma County, we have collaboration with every single program within Human Services. So we have linkages and MSSP, but we also have Adult Protective, in-home support. So all of those agencies who refer to me, whenever I get a referral, that person who's done the referral becomes part of the shared collaboration to figure out what are the needs and how they're being met. Our role, their role, the family's role, so that does create in itself a sense of a community, which, as long as everyone's communicating properly, it will thrive. So here's an interesting, this is probably my most challenging home share. And Constantine is in the middle. She is transgender. And before Cher's participant is the gentleman on the right. Fifi is the IHSS worker, and she is gold. She's gold. She and Chris, who's my client that's matched into this home share, they have such a communication of who does what, where, when, and how, to the point that Constantine has actually stopped having to go to the ER. He is almost dancing. He couldn't walk. And he was very proud to have this picture taken to show how he's able to stand and walking with a cane. And it's really due, I'm just going to take credit for the home share, that what Chris has done for him is amazing. He's taking some online classes, and I kind of suspect that he's using Constantine as a guinea pig. But he's benefiting with like some therapy and different things. It's really interesting. Chris was in the hospital, had a knee surgery not too long ago, and I went to visit him. Constantine was there in full African regalia, in this beautiful flowing, he's just a character, But anyway, so here Constantine is talking about how Chris teaches him how to meditate. He does tend to he's got a lot of anxiety. So Chris has really good at talking him down, which is quite something. And community houses. So Cher has community houses. When I was at COTS, I ran their Integrity House program for a while and was able to bring in, so basically what you're doing is you're getting a home that someone else owns but does not live there, and who is willing for you to manage it, property manage it, if you will. And now that I'm getting 50% match fee for the first month's rent, it just makes it makes more sense for us to be doing this type of housing. But I will tell you, the one that I have that shows this community in Petaluma, there's 6 rooms and 2 beds. 6 rooms, 1 master, and the master has its own bathroom, but there's a bathroom and a half between 6 women. So they've learned to get to know each other and like each other. But it's like they take their toilet paper. Like no one, they all keep their own stuff because someone is always, taking my this or that. So they've gotten very good at using their own supplies when needs be. But this particular community house, the cheapest room, it's very affordable housing or attainable housing because the cheapest room is $450. The master, which is a 12 by 24, is huge. The house is weird. It's oddly large. That's going for $800 a month. That's really, it should, these days it could go for easily much more. Probably twice that actually, if you want to know the truth. But collectively between all of those rooms, it comes out to about $3,500 to the homeowner, which is not bad income. He loves share. So part of our screening process is that most of the providers I do not screen. If I feel like they need to be screened, then I will. But the average age, 80 years on up, the odds of them having, a DUI in the last 5 years or a misdemeanor is very, very, would be just not even possible. So mostly 100%, I do screen each seeker. If the seeker is part of in-home support or a caregiving agency and they've been screened within the last 6 months, then we'll use that. But typically we do the screening. It's a $35 fee. And basically we don't check for credit. We're under the presumption everyone has bad credit, if you will. And along those lines, if you're renting a room, it doesn't matter if you have bad credit or not, but you sure have to be sustainable. So your income has to be sustainable to pay for that monthly rent. So each one of the seekers, we do criminal and eviction history. So if that comes up, then that certainly is a red flag. But anyone with a felony or misdemeanor involving child or elder abuse, no. We don't work with sex offenders or any of that type of thing. And it's hard to, it's hard to tell when somebody, if you say, well, no one with current addictive issues. That's fine, because some people are really good at hiding that. So there is on occasion where somebody has been disappointing and they have started drinking. One of my community houses in Santa Rosa, within a month, and the different council members of Santa Rosa, everyone vouched for this woman. Everyone, yes. So I worked with her, and within a month, I found 8 empty, cheap Russia vodka bottles under her bed. So that's how, it just took her enough time to just go south. And so I literally took her to emergency and then ultimately put her into a 30-day women's shelter. So she was out immediately. We have had 8 trials for the service exchanges not move into a month-to-month out of all the ones that I've done so far. And we've also had, I've done 12 30-day eviction notices so far where they have to leave. We haven't had anything where it was an emergency, where somebody was life-threatening. But if we needed to, we would go in, call the sheriff or what have you, and get that person removed immediately. We're not, that's what we do. So the person, we go along the lines of you've got the 80-year and older person matched with the maybe 55 and older person. The 80-year-old, their vulnerability is much more than somebody who's in his or her 60s. So with each new home share, there's a sense of counseling them to say, you have a responsibility. You've got this person who's older. You are responsible. That that person has priority, has precedence, because that person is simply more vulnerable. So that's really the way we have to focus on this. We will work with some folks with mental health issues, but it's a little bit challenging. They have to have supportive services around them. I had one of my community houses in Guerneville, a 3-bedroom, the gentleman, he was bipolar and really well-known guy, veteran, just great guy, very volunteered everywhere. He was doing so well in the home share that he stopped taking his medications. So then all of a sudden I ended up taking him to the emergency because he just went, just all of a sudden he just went south. It started to happen, but I had no idea what was going on. But the point is that these things will happen. There is risk, always going to be risk. It's just how you have to address immediately and provide that support. So then talking about the fear factor too is, if you think of a provider, he or she's bringing in a complete stranger. So we're extremely cognitive of that they are bringing in a stranger. And we can go, we never put pressure on anyone. It might take this person 6 months before he or she says, okay, I'm willing to try it. Or they might receive pressure from their children who says that if you don't do this, we're going to put you into a nursing home. I mean, that's happened before because they're so vulnerable, possibly lived alone for 30 years, right? But so we're not, it works out as it should. Everything happens as it should, and we do not put pressure on anyone. Never wanting to put around head in a square hole. So we are extremely sensitive to when we're introducing someone. As it relates to introducing them, as far as that interview, that match interview, sometimes we meet at a coffee shop, they might be more comfortable in not coming directly to the home. Then if they, and allow time so that if they will say, okay, well that's fine, let's just go on over to the house, then we can do that. But if they just, if they don't want to bring somebody to the house, that's completely their prerogative. Yeah, we do a lot of check-in, how you doing, what's going on, everything okay. But in addition to that, talking with the family, because the family is extremely important. If they live nearby, we do a lot of having them be involved with the whole process. We don't want to, especially if the person is a little bit even more vulnerable with dementia, so we want to make sure that the person is well represented. So our matching process, we average 35 new inquiries a day. Initially, the home seeker is, there's an inquiry form that we do that basically gives us all the information that we need so that if a potential match does come up, that we would then have the person fill out the complete application, do the background, their references, and then move forward.
How do they find you?
Huh?
How do people know to come to you?
I get referrals all over the place. We're getting more website activity, which is great, which is really, and I don't look at our website right now. It's a little bit, it's not done properly, but we're working on it. But yeah, we get, all the human services groups, the senior centers, newspaper, we're in the media quite a bit, newspapers, and then also our website. And friends and family, if someone who is a provider will say to their friend, well, you should call Share. So that happens quite a bit. So we do have an awesome database. I'm very proud of it. It has helped me to save an enormous amount of time with this matching process. Up to this point, frankly, it had been in my head. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, what about this person? So, but we have an amazing database, and so basically we put in the provider information. It queues up 3, 4, 7 potential matches with seekers, and then we go from there. But I will tell you that the reason home sharing or share is successful is because of our ability, our intuition, intuitively knowing, that this is a good match. there's just some sense of intuition, that if you don't have intuition, it's not a good thing, because you have to really feel that this is a good match. So 0.1% is the sales force's abilities, but 99.99% is all of our human ability to make that match. So this is kind of, I don't know if you guys can even see this. So this is my data. I'm current through the end of December. Part of my funding is Community Development Commission. Because I work with homeless, I do report those who are designated homeless into the Home Management Information Systems software through HUD. And so basically, you can see our statistics as far as and actually this number is wrong. HMIS, I've now done 117. The percentages are most likely the same, but of those that I've inputted because of their designation of homelessness, less than 4 have actually not been successful. And that's really good data. And one of my pet peeves is different agencies, different nonprofits, their inability to be transparent. I don't like that. So I'm very careful to keep my data now with my Salesforce database. You know, we're tracking all kinds of stuff. It's quite exciting. I like it. All right, I think that's it. And here's a way if you want to give us a call. The 707 number is on there for your amusement.
I think you have a question. So your mix of folks are substantially white and very few
I know.
Hispanic. We're sort of the opposite. Here, do you have bilingual folks on staff, and you plan to do that
yes.
on your website as well?
Well, thank you for mentioning that, because Leah now is working with us. She's a retired social worker, mostly from Child Protective Services, but she's done 30 plus years of field work. She's bilingual, and she's got 2 clients now who are, do not speak English, and she's working with them. So we're going to grow that, which has always been a goal of mine, because the Hispanic population throughout Sonoma County is huge. So Leah, she's going to be helping us with that. Yeah.
Can we pass these around?
Oh, thank you. Arda, can you? Yes.
Do you have a special database tool you can use, or is it just
No, we've developed it. A lot of time and frankly money on it.
Is that shareable?
That's a what?
Is that shareable?
That's with Salesforce, correct?
That's my Salesforce.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry you didn't know that was, Salesforce is the software. Now we've got it to the point where we're almost there, where if you click on to donate to Share California, then it immediately forwards into our Salesforce. Like all of our data, it's fine-tuning it and just stopping some of the steps or processes that are so manual. So it's pretty cool what we're able to do.
Do you ever worry about, the seekers ever worry about risking their disability when they're providing services?
Yes, all the time. Yeah, to the point, for example, I have one in Bodega Bay. The gentleman he's also another, bless his heart, quadriplegic. The lady we matched out there, she is on disability, so she can only do and he has a ton of IHSS. So she can only do $500 a month. So we do run into that quite a bit. Yeah. Well, some of the folks, well, thank you. And I will tell you that some of the folks, they trust our process enough that, and I've gotten them a job here or there, that they've actually stopped their disability, which is a huge thing because, people they want to hang on to that income.
Trying to get back on it.
Yeah.
Do you ever, I saw a home share, do you ever find homes that are without a huge inventory or second homes in Carmel that will be shared? That are sitting vacant and months of the year, wherever they are. Do you ever find any opportunity for house residents, if you will, in the off season and or the possibility of home shares?
the problem, it's not a problem, there's plenty, like Bodega Bay, for example, their golf course. There's only 2 or 3 lights on at nighttime. You know what I mean? It's like a place, it's kind of creepy, actually. And, but because people, those are more Airbnb. That's kind of more what you're gonna look at, because when I'm placing somebody, any funding that I get is based on the fact that I'm creating permanent housing. So that, if they have to leave in 6 months.
Oh, no, I was actually thinking of them, permanently residing in a bedroom in these giant
Oh, well, sure.
mansions, and when the owners come to visit, they've got the
Yeah.
whole rest of the house, but almost like an ADU or something like that.
Yep, great idea.
Trying to figure out how to do it.
People, it's hard, people are just so, well, not in my backyard, but not in my, So one of the things that was interesting with the fires was that we got folks who never in a million years would become a provider. And from the fires, after they had someone in their home and like, oh, this is great, that they actually continue to have a second home share. And with the sheriff fires, I had 2,200 calls. 1,125, approximately 1,125 were providers. So now that what's happening with fire survivors is now that FEMA is going away in April, as is the assisted living expense through insurance policies. So folks, there's going to be a whole new phase of potential homelessness for people at risk. So we're really focused on that. We've just got a new grant to actually work on that. So we have all of these providers in our database. So we're getting ready to do an outreach. And just say, look, it's not over. It's still happening. And it's yeah.
Did you start with?
She's actually
Sorry.
Are there people rebuilding yet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it is
It's happening.
being redeveloped.
But less and less, though.
Are the prices going up, or are they stabilizing, or are they going
They're
down?
going up. 5% of the housing stock when it was already a 1% vacancy rate. So it isn't pretty. And the crazy thing is that I'm working with people from Butte County. So some folks from Paradise are ending up at the homeless shelters. And I've got several right now that I'm helping them find housing. And that's terrible. I can't say, well, I'm going to help you more because you live in here. I can't do that. It's just whoever's the right match. So that's how I'm keeping it. And that way it's fair. And it's just fair.
Did you institute this with the county, or did you start it and then working into collaborating with county and agencies?
Well, so I had started the program when I was at the shelter to help when the economy went upside down. So I still had everything. And I went on to other things. Life happened for me. And in 2014, I was not working. And I had intentionally taken the time that I wanted to just focus on my career was information technology. I worked for 2 large corporations. The second one, I was all over the world doing sales and marketing. So I wasn't wanting to do that anymore. There's no way in heck I could have done that anymore. But I knew I wanted to do something. And the seniors have always just pulled at me. So I just reinstated the home share program after I started getting calls from folks saying, about that home share program. What did you do this and what did you do that? It's like, let me come to the meetings. And within 2 months, I realized that I was just going to restart the program. I used my own dime for 8 months. And that started to get, yeah.
So then your funding sources are primarily through AAA or grants or?
Community development, foundations, and we're getting more and more private monies.
So it's community.
Yeah, and yet AAA, we're working, that's down the road, that's going to happen. Yeah, they should be funding me.
So community development block grants,
Yes, that's coming up, February 8th is when it's due. Are you guys, you got HEAP coming in? So who's distributing that through your local county?
Coalition, homeless coalition.
yeah, Coalition for Homeless Service
And a
Providers.
lot of it's being targeted for Slade Shelter, maybe a seaside shelter.
Well, for me, I'm actually in collaboration with Sonoma Valley for a piece of it. And then also, they always give me like a cursory, here's your 50,000, Amy, thank you very much. But that's through the CDBG grant. But the HEAP monies, I'm going to be able to, there's 4 different areas. Margaret, I'd be happy to talk. I mean, if you guys are interested in more, as far as what my focus is as it relates to the HEAP, because I'm not a housing first model. I cannot throw somebody in there and then deal with it. That's not how the home share is going to work. But we're preventing homelessness. So there's quite a bit around that.
So if you looked at your community houses, it's possible additional shelters for folks who are not addicted and/or.
Yeah.
Is that something that homeowners should
See,
do?
that's been my goal the entire time, was to have like this. I have 3 active so far. I did have 5, but 2 of the homes sold. So I have 1 in Gardenville that's 3-bed, 1 in Santa Rosa that's 3-bed, and then a 6-bed in Petaluma. So my goal, and the one in Petaluma actually does have a theme, which is single women who were homeless. Every single one of them came from COTS or slum house, or the roads, actually. So, but I'd like to have a theme, that within the house, so that, let's say we get a whole bunch, we have veterans, veterans have a house or whatever.
You tend to build a better community.
Yeah, this community, it's really nice to. The best thing about home sharing is as you watch the share evolve and mature, the beautiful process of community. The other thing I'll say is that, I can go down in Santa Rosa, more than 50% of my home shares are Santa Rosa. I can go down this neighborhood, there's like 3, like I got one there, got one there. So you have these home shares that are actually in the same neighborhood. So now that I've got this great Salesforce database, software is to match them all up so that these home shares are all talking to each other. So that they're not all calling me and, someone's took my cereal. You know what I mean? It's like, let them communicate with each other and create that community. So that's my next thing to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can hang on that up here if you want. Look, we just have a few, like several minutes, our business to attend to.
Okay.
So you're welcome to be up here. So thank you again for coming, and it's
Thank
great
you
to
very
hear
much.
from you. So next up on our agenda are our work group reports. Did you want to give this a little brief report on policy ADU?
Sure. Our policy work group really has been focusing on home share models, and we've had presentations from about 4 or 5 now different models. And last month we had Covia present, and Tracy is here today. And what has happened in the past month since we met is we've had a meeting with United Way to look at possible funding. And while they haven't said, yes, I mean, they're interested. They want us to have a variety of funders to put the program together. And Tracy, would you like to add anything on to that?
No, I just think it is that. How can you diversify? What are the foundations? What are the community funders? And the sustainability is really interesting to hear you talk about the model of sharing the monthly, taking that deposit, and always looking at how can you make it sustainable. And so we are actually just working right now, that's happened in the last week, is with Alameda County as well. And they're looking at, we have one small program in Fremont that we adopted from HEAP, housing, but how else do you how do you grow it, how do you scale? So just that, looking at the different people. I think the other thing, I don't know if that will be as effective in Monterey, but in Alameda County, maybe looking at some larger corporations coming in. Do you want to help people live where they're working? Things like that. So just trying to always twirl on where are there different funding sources to be able to support the program.
So we're really just thrilled that Covia would like to have a home share program in Monterey County. So just putting those funding pieces together to make that happen. So also looking at CDBG block grants. And I know that there's some of the cities have applications that have already closed, some are closing soon, and then the HEAP opportunities are coming up. I know that's on the agenda a little bit later. But there's also, I think, some foundations that we can look at as well.
Corporations?
We haven't gone to corporations here, but I think it's it's an idea that
I worked at Pebble
should be
Beach for a
looked
long
at.
time. I just retired, and they have a huge community outreach program. Lives in Yorkville.
And as far as ADUs, the county of Monterey has been working on its policy, and in February, it'll be presented at one of the Board of Supervisors meetings. I'm not sure which exact meeting yet, but it will be coming out next month.
Great, thank you, Margaret. Sadie, you want to give a brief update on the caregiver workforce?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Sadie from Ladies Home Care. The caregiver workforce development is doing well. If you're not up to date on what we're doing, we've been working for a year this month on getting an education to basically provide free education or sponsored education to bring more certified nursing assistants into the workforce. So in turn, that's going to help keep seniors at home safely, and it will help provide more CNAs for skilled nursing facilities, home care agencies, home health agencies, private duty, and in-home supportive services. So where we are is our CNA course is very close to being finalized. There's just a couple of documents that need to be retouched up and sent back. That was the update on last Thursday, a little frustration, but it's happening. The home health aid program is already okayed, but that is going to be that's not through the sponsored program. And we were having a delay in finding a fiscal sponsor because we're not a nonprofit, but we are working on an agreement with there's so many names, help me out.
John with Health Project Center.
The Action Council.
The Action Council they're not providing that service anymore. So
Health Project Center.
Health Project Center, thank you. So we are working on an agreement right now, and that's going back and forth in the drafting phases, and that will be taken to their board at, I think, around January 28th, at the end of this month. And after that gets finalized, we will have a fiscal sponsor, so we're pretty sure we're going to be getting pretty close to that. And we're hoping the courses can start in February. The other part of the application process that we're working on is we're working on getting onto the workforce development education providers list. And that application is very lengthy, so that's what we're working on right now in conjunction with the agreement for the fiscal sponsor. So, doing good. Thank you.
If that's a problem for somebody, let us know. Community Home Solutions has a 501c3 that probably do a fiscal agency as well.
Okay.
We're the biggest agency for homeless housing and shelters and so on in the county. So we'll be happy. I'm Eric Johnson. I'm on the board.
Okay, thank you so much.
brief update on Navigator University?
Sure. So we will be having our next Navigator University each Tuesday in March from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And what this is a series of 4 different workshops providing professionals the tools and the resources needed to move an individual experiencing homelessness into secure permanent housing. And so this will happen on March 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
And that is open to professionals who do work in the navigation, housing navigation field, world. And all 3 of these above workshops came out of a summit that we held in 2017 on housing and homelessness specific to seniors and the disabled communities. And after that summit, or during that summit, and then thereafter, we had some work groups that formed out of it. And these are the 3 that are continuing to forge ahead. And it kind of brings us to a discussion we can briefly have about other potential work group topics that this group might see as something to be a part of in terms of it beginning your own, or if there's a thought or a project out there out of this group and you want to form a work group as well. Are there things that we are not yet touching upon that individuals may want to get together and begin working on, like these other groups have done out of the summit? We want to make sure that this collaborative is focusing on the things that the larger group, would like to focus on. And I don't know, right away, if folks have like, yes, I want to start working on X type of thing, but certainly throw them out there. But those were the 3 that sort of have continued to progress in the last year and 2 months or so. And so there may be other suggestions or ideas folks have for additional work groups.
I'm sorry I missed the description of the work groups that you have now, but I'd like to see something on first aid for working with mentally compromised people, disabled.
Do you say first aid?
Yeah. How do you interact right off the bat with somebody that's having a problem or has a chronic problem?
So that would mean something that now I'm just throwing this out there, you would want to chair a work group to bring forward to the community at large?
Yeah, I would like to see that offered to the community at large. They had a class like that on campus at CSUMB, but it wasn't open to the public. They said they would offer another one, which I think that was happening. So it's just a way of, you're working with people in that capacity, whether it's volunteer or professional. I'd like to see that over to volunteers like myself.
Yeah, well, that would be, again, that would be something if to get us off the ground or get a group off the ground of folks that are part of this collaborative who may want to work on something like that with you, that'd be something to think of. So maybe if that's something folks are interested in from this group, maybe reach out to you, speak with you to see if there's something around that you guys could do. And go from there. Like these other work groups, like I said, came out of that summit. Someone forged ahead and became the chair of it and brought individuals together who had attended that event and began working on it. So it's, you're at the beginning, grassroots type stages of it. So anybody else?
Not that I'm ready to take on or start or chair a new project or anything, but I do want to at least bring it up again that I'd really like to see something happen, or maybe there's still interest in the tiny homes, or the little tiny home, areas. And then I really would like to entertain the idea of something with mixed generational living. I don't think we've touched on that one that much, but maybe after caregiver development is up and running, I could move on to a new one. But those are 2 that I'm also very passionate about, that maybe other people might be interested in, yeah.
If I may, we've been working on the tiny home stuff for 4 years now. And we'll be meeting actually with Father Reed and some of the gathering by the
Is that this
on
Wednesday?
yeah, to do a little presentation on kind of the current status of tiny homes and development and so on. It might actually fit well with the development more for villages as opposed to individual units, but the tiny home villages are very interesting. And we've been actually working to build some of these tiny homes in the prisons, and are about a couple months away from probably getting an agreement with Folsom and locally with Solnet to build them. But if we build them in the prisons, we can build them to whatever spec we need, and size and so on, but also it trains the inmates how to build them. You know, they get skills, everything else, so when they get out, they can get hired in construction ideally and so on. So it's a kind of a very elaborate thing where we've been meeting with the CDC and with the Sacramento about that for so I'd love to be, you know, be part of that. We're looking at the community home solutions of one of our properties of maybe a small village behind the marina here of a village that we primarily geared for women, single women or women and kids that are moving into permanent housing as an opportunity. So we're meeting with the marina in the city on Thursday. See where we go with that.
Maybe you can present at our next home collaborative meeting.
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of people that are really interested in hearing more about that.
That'll be fun, maybe.
This Wednesday, I'm going to be canceling another meeting.
Okay, well, we'll add these topics then to our minutes and then moving forward. And we'll just keep the conversation going about these topics and determine how those of you who've come up with the concepts would want to move it forward. And then it looks like we may have a speaker for another.
Great.
You've got to be careful, you know, right?
No, it's a great topic.
And then I'll also share a little bit for everybody information. So this collaborative does have a smaller group of a steering committee that started a year or so ago as well. And through the process of changes and individuals and life and such, what did you say in your presentation? Life happened, or I experienced something. Yeah, that happened. Our steering committee has grown and changed, and so I just want to take this opportunity to say that some of the steering committee members are in the room, and so I want you to know who they are. And one is myself, and one is Mickey Pena, Margaret Huffman, and Sadie, whose name I know, Sadie Smith, and Doris Beckman, and Erica Parker. So those are a few of our members, and some of our members aren't here today. Clay Kemp from Santa Cruz County, and who else am I? We had a couple others, but we're still figuring. Jessica Amarante, who was one of the founding steering committee members. And so I wanted to let you all know about that. And so those of us that are on the steering committee get together a little bit ahead of these meetings and set up our agenda and get things organized, things of that sort. So for right now, we have two co-chairs that after our last steering committee meeting that we decided who volunteered to be the co-chairs, and that's myself and Maggie. So if you see emails coming from us or signed by us or just by the steering committee, you know some of the faces that are related to what that committee is. So I just wanted to give you guys all that update. Kind of back to our agenda then, our HEAP update. Our friend Eric might have more to say about that. All the update that we were going to share was that the county was provided or is given the $12.5 million. We know that's happening, and now you're in the process of finalizing details around what you will release to the public about requests. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, so there's about $2 million of that is slated for San Benito County. Because San Benito and Monterey County are tied together in the coalition. So 10.5 to Monterey County. The coalition leadership council is developing the RFP format, if you will, because RFPs come into the leadership body and then they decide how they're going to use it. They have had a couple meetings on kind of where they want to prioritize the bulk of the funding, and I'm happy to hear that about 65% of it they want to dedicate towards housing development, facility development, or at least hard dollars going towards getting people housed. as opposed to just throwing single service dollars at, in a single year. The money has to be spent within a 2-year period completely. So big housing projects are not likely because those take 5 years. But the focus so far has been a lot on the Selena shelter. We're building that on county property, probably for 100 folks more or less, and so all the design discussions and so on are going around that. Potentially a seaside shelter is another big high priority. Although those are just, things that are thrown out there at this point in time, as probably key things that could be funded. You have to also fund, 5% of the money has to go to youth homeless services, which is great. For those who don't know, we have over 7,000 youth in our county that are considered technically homeless, which is tragic. And there's just an article released, actually, I think, came out of San Francisco on 2 days ago, on we're the highest percentage of kids in schools with homeless kids in the whole state. We're almost 10%, 9.5%. Yeah, which is tragic. And then there's another big area in Palmdale, Antelope Valley area, which is sort of second, but they're 6.5%. So it's really something we have to focus in on and figure out. It's not good. And of course, the biggest propensity of homeless students are now South State school districts. I think last year, we checked in Monterey School District, we had 650, 670 students who were homeless in mental schools. So that's kind of the latest, and that process is the RFPs. I think they're going to start going in over the next month, and then the leadership council will meet together to sort out which ones we're going to fund.
So the RFP hasn't been released yet.
Right.
So they're looking at end of January or early February is what
I believe that's it. They're focusing a lot on the point in time count for the homeless that's coming up at the end of January here. So I imagine mid-February sort of finalize.
Have they allocated within there's administration, like for Sonoma County, 500,000 of that is administration. Then they earmarked 15% to 18 and 20 to 24. So have they done that for you guys as far as this?
Yes, they bumped up the youth percentage, I think, from 5 to maybe 10%.
Okay, so we're
And they want to focus 65 on the facility and then the remaining on specific service stuff. Actually, a lot of the other large chunk they want to focus is on the rapid rehousing funds, which is probably a good focus. So if you run out of money in 6 months, you're not employed, it doesn't help you.
Can I quickly share something? The leadership, there's a new way of how they're doing it through the CDC in Sonoma County. So you have all these folks on the dais, and one of them, it was earmarked almost 400,000 for seniors, for specifically linkages to senior housing. And one of the folks on the dais goes, "Why are we focusing on seniors?"
Education.
Yeah.
Well, guess who called out him? Right after. Oh, it's all I could do not to stand up and go, whew.
You didn't have any tomatoes.
That would have been helpful.
Really would have gotten that, built that bridge. Okay. Okay, thank you. Speaking of the point in time homeless count, that is coming up for our county, Monterey County,
January 31st.
the 31st. So they always utilize volunteers for that process. So if you're interested, you can go, I believe, onto the Coalition of Homeless Service Provider website and register. Correct? I think that's correct.
Yep. You gotta be up at 4:30 in the morning to do
Yep.
that. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
It was the early morning.
Yeah. So wanted to just share that with you. I know Clay was going to send the info from Santa Cruz, and he did, but it doesn't have Santa Cruz specific information on that email. So I'm not sure where you would call for that.
So I signed up to participate, so I would like to see some of you guys there at 4:30 along with me.
Yeah, it'll be
Please.
cold. Arden, you interested?
You gonna want to come on down?
It's just so important to get as many people counted as possible. It really impacts the funding that our county is able to draw in future years.
Especially those unincorporated areas, which don't get the funding. So it's interesting to,
You'll be in King City at 4:30 in the morning. Stand next to our, it'll be all night.
Then we wanted to add on our agenda a few opportunities to be heard about the items that, we discuss from time to time in here. So we listed out these ones that are coming up pretty soon. For example, tonight there is a special meeting with the city of Monterey, and it's actually more along the lines of those who were selected for the recipients of the CDBG funds to present to their council. And then it's open to the public to provide feedback and respond, I believe, or comment on these proposals. So it may be an opportunity to speak about home sharing, maybe an opportunity to speak about seniors, it may be an opportunity to just have a voice heard, to not forget about those of us we're working with here. So that's this evening. And then on the 16th, there's two different meetings. One is a follow-up to a previous meeting that Supervisor Parker and Supervisor Adams held. So this particular one, they're pairing up with the Commuity Foundation on the 16th at 5, and it's a town hall to again discuss the HEAP funding and additional information about a potential peninsula shelter and things of that nature. So again, another opportunity to talk and remind folks about that, for potential shelters, we really like and hope that seniors and individuals with disabilities are, these newer facilities are accessible and available for this population. As we know, it's increasing, and we often find it very difficult to assist a senior individual to go into a shelter environment on both sides, in terms of availability and acceptability and the individual themselves. So it's another great opportunity to speak about that. And then also on the 16th is the Fund for Homeless Women morning meeting, general meeting, where they will be talking about updates on their funds, their accomplishments, and also about the tiny home movement discussion. So those are some opportunities for everybody that is involved with this collaborative to be seen and heard in other public forums. So those are all available for you guys to attend as well.
I'm not sure if everybody actually got an agenda or signed in, but it's on the table over there, the detail about these meetings if you didn't pick it up. And we really do want everybody to sign in, and if you're not already on our email list, so you can get notices.
And then one last little discussion to have with everybody is really looking at how often we want to meet as a larger group. We fluctuated between monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, quarterly meetings, and then this go around we've kind of had one, I guess, almost every month for the last couple of months. We had a special group meeting on related to seniors and the HEAP funding that came out of this collaborative. Last month we met as well for a presentation, and then this month again. So I'm just wondering what folks think about the frequency of this larger group meeting and what would feel best for everybody. A monthly and every other month. I know everybody has a ton of meetings and a ton of things like that going on, but we want to keep folks talking and aware of what's going on. So just wondering if anybody had any definitive opinion about what they thought, or
I've been unable to be part of the subgroups. I'd love to become more active, but I just, are they pretty active? And And therefore, is that the focus of the work? So if they're
The
meeting-
work groups?
If they're doing monthly, is that where most of the heavy lifting is being done? So
I mean, I think, yeah, those that we sort of set it out that they would meet monthly and then the larger group would meet quarterly. But then there's so much going on that things were getting lost, and keeping everybody updated through email can get complicated sometimes. But yeah, there's some heavy lifting done by the work groups and new ones forming. And so, yeah, it was an every month work group meeting and then every 3 months larger group to report out. But we're just wondering, does that work, or should we make it every other month, or?
So we kind of talked about, especially while this HEAP process is rolling out, to meet monthly. And it seems like that would be a good thing to do. And I'd really love to hear about tiny homes sooner rather than later.
but I think anyone is free to come Wednesday morning, right? Anyone?
Oh, for the fund?
Yeah. So I'll be talking specifically about the tiny homes there. So if you don't want to hear me repeat.
Yeah, you know, everybody can kind of come at different times, so we'd love, I mean, even if you want to repeat, that's, you can just, you know, add music or something next to it.
Make it fancier, yeah.
Yeah.
Senior voters.
Yeah. So yeah, just, what do you guys think? Anybody?
I'm not one that meets with this group monthly, but I did really want to come here and see your presentation. And I'm thinking in terms of outreach and making more noise in the community, that maybe if you had special speakers and topics like tiny homes, everybody's talking about that, home sharing, people are talking about that. You'd make them at like 5:30 or 6, and then advertise the heck out of them and get people to come and learn and get more people to participate and understand what kind of conditions are prevalent in our community. Most people have no idea of the number of homeless or the benefits, you know, that they, in their own selves being part of the solution, actually doing something. The resistance is tremendous. You know, shut my house, I wouldn't want to do that. So I think the more we talk about the crisis in the greater community and give them an opportunity to come, maybe that would kill two birds with one stone. Maybe the executive people could be every other month or talk via email or something like that. I don't know. As long as you get those words percolating, that's pretty cool.
The other thing about the homelessness part of this whole thing too is that people don't really understand what it is. You know, what is a today homeless person?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the idea that they can have this person just, you know, one laying in the gutter. I mean, it's
I'm
not
not
like
having that at
that.
my house. That's
It's
what
your
I'm
mother.
talking about.
It's your mother at a homeless shelter now.
Yeah.
So I feel like there should be some education. I mean, I don't know what your population of homelessness is. I'm sorry. I mean, it's, you know, it's easily, it's high in Sonoma County, you know. And I just know my statistics, a third of them, of the folks we work with are homeless.
I'd like to be able to have people hear the stories of even those that I know in Brooklyn River that have waited, you know, the waiting list, and,
Yep.
and some of them got lucky and got right away. But they've got great backstories, and they're nice people, and they
That's
see
right.
the stigma, you
And
know,
that might help the home
resistance.
share
I'd
program
like to
as
overcome
well.
that, you know, somehow.
Yeah.
There's a great exhibit up in Gilroy, and I just saw it on the news. They did it at Monterey Museum last year, but of the homeless pictures and stories,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Brings to life people's lives, and it's
Well,
brings
see,
a substantially different visit.
So
But that's a
he-
good PR thing for the community, not PR, educational
Just
piece for the
information.
community.
But he also, they focus on the most chronically homeless. That's not who I work with, but there's plenty of people who aren't chronic, who are homeless, and, you know, I really feel like there should be some sense of education.
The pressure.
Yeah. And there's more and more and more, and then more and more elderly.
So we'll meet next month?
I think that was the
Every other month maybe was my, that was my input. I would be excited to have the tiny homes come next month as well, even though I will see on Wednesday. But I think every other month was good for me, but that was just my input.
Okay. Well, we'll take the feedback, and the group, the steering committee will just discuss, and all of you, as long as you're signed up on there, we'll get the announcement about when our next meeting will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.